Peter, thank you for joining us. We're delighted to have you.
In 2007, we finally got the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship established. In the early days, you were thinking about that. What was your goal and what was your greatest hope that the center would help to solve?
Well, first of all, it seemed to me, I had an association with, obviously having been a professor or still a visiting professor at the University of New South Wales. And the University of New South Wales, when it was set up, like if you like, equivalent to the red brick universities in the UK, it was meant to be more or less at the leading edge of translational research, if you like. In other words, focusing people on getting a background training in order to work in, if you like, the real world. So, in other words, you want to take, the concept is you take good ideas, sensible, well filtered, well evaluated scientific and or science, technology, and engineering ideas, and deliver them to the real world. And to me, innovation is that process. In other words, you have to have creativity, but creativity isn't innovation, and discovery isn't innovation. Innovation only occurs when you deliver the concept or the idea into the marketplace, and if you like, somebody writes a check. So the final thing about innovation is that somebody sees it as a value proposition. So you do need creativity, you do need discovery, but you have to get it out into the marketplace. And that's how you create wealth, and that's how you, at the end of the day, you create jobs. And if we are not innovating, we are not investing in the future. So I decided that we ought to catalyse that back here. And entrepreneurship is part and parcel of innovation. You need somebody to drive it, to drive the innovation process. It doesn't happen by itself. You need people. And these are people. An entrepreneur is not a risk taker. People think entrepreneurs are risk takers. Hey, let's bet the farm. That's just not where it's at. Entrepreneurs are people that see a little bit further over the horizon, and they're willing to back their judgment, their ideas, or the judgment of the team. You get a team of people together, and so you take entrepreneurship with innovation, and that key hookup is how you get this whole thing done.
In the university, we have an environment of both researchers, faculty, teaching, students, as well as we have research centers of excellence. What's the missing ingredient there when it comes to innovation?
Well, I think universities in general, you cannot expect universities and even places like MIT or Stanford, you can't expect them to do product development. It's just not where it's at. But the elements that you need to put together should be taught within an academic environment. And that is that the end point has to be, we ought to be solving major league problems, whether it's to do with healthcare, whether it's to do with alternate sources of energy. We ought to be looking at that, water reclamation and so forth. But at the end of the day, there's an economic reason for putting money into getting technology out of campuses into the commercial world. And so people have to be given a skill set, an exposure, an awareness of what needs to be done. You don't actually do it there, but the elements of what needs to be done should be taught in a campus environment, and it should be multidisciplinary.
Thinking about the difficulty in today's climate, what would you write down as the key success factors for the contemporary entrepreneur?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about academia. People say, gosh, you're an academic. How did you transfer into the business world? Well, one has to differentiate, don't do a deep dive, but academics can be professors of sociology, or professors of chemical engineering, or professors of orthopedic surgery. Now, you're all under the umbrella of academe, but these people do very, very different things. You wouldn't see too many professors of sociology, social work, or English being entrepreneurs and innovators in the world of commerce, because it's not expected of them, and it's not something, they're they're looking at a different idea about how problems get solved. So, you know, I started life as a chemical engineer, and what do engineers do? They look at practical problems and try to solve them. Now, that doesn't mean that the academic rigor is any less. In fact, you could argue it's even more, because you have to get a result. And results are fairly important. And I think that's true of medicine and engineering. I think you do medicine because there has to be some element in you where you want to help people. And the same, I think, is true of engineering. You want to help people in a different sort of way. You're not working on the human body, but you're working on the infrastructure where humans live. So the trans, you know, for me to go from academe to industry was not a big deal. In fact, having gone through Sydney University about 100 years ago, maybe it wasn't quite 100 years ago, but we very much were made conscious of that there was a commercial element to what we were doing. In other words, all the rigor associated with the heat and mass transfer and statistics and so forth, higher mathematics, you put that all together, and at the end of the day, we all knew we were out there to solve problems. So, you know, to me, that wasn't a difficult transition, but I finished at Sydney, then I worked for Union Carbide. I got transferred to North America. I ended up going to MIT. I then went to Standard Oil of California. I got recruited back to MIT, worked in the office of the president. I then decided to do a doctorate, and I chose the University of Washington in Seattle because I was interested in treatment with the artificial kidney, and the guys that developed the Tinkoff catheter, Henry Tinkoff, was there building Scribner. The Scribner shunt was there. So that was natural for me to go there, and they offered me enough money and so on and so forth. Then I stayed on the faculty there but for a little while. But while I was there, even while I was doing my PhD, I was working with industry. I was working with Baxter and Asahi in Japan, Gambro in Sweden, and Fresenius in Germany, and a couple of other companies in the United States, and when I came back, got recruited back to the University of New South Wales, I kept very close association with industry, and they were in fact giving me money to solve problems that they wanted solved, and so we were putting bright students onto it, and it seemed to me to be totally, utterly, and completely natural.
Peter, if you think about the trajectory of your career from when you first began at MIT to the mid-career moves and today, was it always clear to you where you would end up? And would somebody today be surprised for who you are versus where you were when you first began?
Well, you know, I think a lot of what we do is opportunistic. In other words, I don't think, you know, do we have a great game plan for life? I mean, I'm sure some people do, but I would say the bulk of people, it's important to get exposure to different elements of things which interest you. Now, I think, you know, whether you're a physician, whether you're an engineer or an applied scientist, the very thinking is it's problem solving. And how can I best solve problems? And typically what you like to do is to work on problems that are meaningful. So let's solve something that's meaningful. I happen to pick healthcare. One could call it sick care, given the amount of money we spend on it and how little we get in terms of results overall for the amount. Looking at the United States, I mean, 16% of gross domestic product, and it's just shocking how all the incentives are misaligned. But so that is a major league problem that obviously has to be addressed by the U.S. system, and it is a sick care system because you wait till an event happens, you wait till somebody exits the freeway, and then you try to fix them up and put them back on the freeway again. And it's just a crazy way to do it. So we need to look at the infrastructure and the incentives, make the incentives align a little better. But if you look at specific areas, you know, I was interested in treatment with the artificial kidney and so forth for many years. And then we kind of hit what I would say, my interest started to wane in that area because I felt that we you know, the low-hanging fruit was gone.